All right, this time I want to bring on my guest. This is a man who learned under Boyd Epley here at the University of Nebraska, strength and conditioning coach for 30-plus years. Pittsburgh, Ohio State, Nebraska, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and more. We called him Coach K, but Dave Kennedy. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great, man. I'm doing great. How are you?
Dude, I'm glorious. I appreciate you taking the time to join me. So I got like a million questions, but I want to start off with, because you've coached guys and trained guys like Orlando Pace, Larry Fitzgerald, Joey Galloway.
Adam Carricker.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Stuart Bradley, Carl Nix.
Were you in Tampa with Sue and Levante David? You were there with Levante David, right?
Levante's been there forever. No, Sue came after me. Sue was when I first got there, he was with Detroit. And then he went to Miami, and we played Miami when he was there. So I saw him a couple times, but I was not there when he went back there.
So what sticks out the most to you about guys like this that are obviously, some of them are just kind of freak natural talents? But, I mean, I watched Larry actually came into the University of Nebraska and trained in the winter getting ready for the draft while we were doing winter conditioning. I remember watching him do lunges with 315 on his back as a freaking wide receiver. But what are some of the common traits beyond just natural ability that some of these great players have had that you've seen?
Okay, so I don't know if you remember telling this story. Here's the most common trait. I mean, there's really a lot of different levels of genetics that people are given. And you know, my analogy is like a key card in an elevator. You know, if you go into a hotel, a really great hotel, you have a certain key card that allows you to go to certain floors. And certain people have a key card that allows them to start at different floors. So talent is what's given, and where you go with that is that's up to you. And the great players, the one attribute that they had that it took me a while to figure this out is they would not give in to anybody. And there's a lot of great genetic guys that didn't really have that. And so when I say that is it didn't matter if it was the head coach, it didn't matter if it was me putting them under pressure to try to quit. They wouldn't give it up to anybody. Joey Galloway is a perfect example. I might hurt him, but he would go hide in the building and he wouldn't let anybody see that I got to him. And so when you're people don't understand, there's a lot of big decisions being made in a football game, whether to go or not go. You know, you could stay on a block, or you really have to deal with the devil a lot in those games, and not giving that up is something that the great ones always have. They'll go to a spot that other guys won't go to.
It's interesting because I remember how you were. You would be, especially days we were going to do redirection drills, and you'd try to get us to go the wrong way because you'd be pointing, which meant you had to start over. And it was like your whole goal in life to get us to start over like 50,000 times in a row. You'd be talking trash to us on the way to the field. I'm going to get you today. I own you today. And then if you got somebody, you'd be on them in the weight room afterwards, whether it was me or it was Richie or it was whoever. It didn't matter who it was. And so I would imagine you're talking about dealing with the devil. That's the negative thoughts in your mind. I would imagine that was part of the reason you incorporated that directly into your strength conditioning program. Is that correct?
That's everything. You gotta, and especially as a defensive player, you know, I think and you were obviously a defensive player. I think there's way more decisions going on the defensive side of the ball. So if you're looking at a team that isn't playing as hard, and you know, it's generally on the defensive side that it shows up, because offense is more controlled. I mean, they call the play and they run the play, and everybody does their job on run that play. In defense, there's decisions being made as to, as I said, you know, previously, you know, there's a guy that could act like he's on a block and then chase from behind and take himself out of the play and really not be in the play, or somebody chasing from the backside, or a corner not really taking an angle to get the ball carrier because he doesn't want to be, you know, in that spot. You know, Barry Sanders, if you're coming up to, you know, to tackle Barry Sanders, you could be embarrassed. And if you are a offensive tackle and you have Von Miller outside of you, or Adam Carricker is going to either beat you with speed or power, that's going to be on ESPN. That's going to be everywhere, and that's embarrassing. And so it's easy for people to disengage from that and hide in that. And so on the defensive side of the ball, a call's being made, but there's way more individual decisions being made on the defensive, side of the ball, from my perspective. So the more you get callous to that, and the more you just will not give in to that, and it's all there. It's there, in raising your kids. It's there in business. But the more you don't give in on that, the better you're going to be, and the better your team's going to be. And that's on the individual basis. But then the enforcers that you have. About Sue. Sue was Sue was an unbelievable enforcer. If you said get your hand behind, if he said you get your hand behind the line, everybody get their hand behind the line. I mean, there's nobody going to rear up on Sue. So anyway, those are the things that happen in a football game that people really don't pay attention to, but people on the inside really know what goes on.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've always said the offensive side of the ball is so much more tactical, whereas defensively you're reacting and you're flying to the ball, and it's a lot more of it's mental, but in a different way. It's much more of a violence mindset, in my opinion, on the defensive side of the ball, which is where, that little guy on your left shoulder, the one with the pitchfork and pointy ears and whatnot, can start talking to you, and that's where mental weakness can kind of get to you just a little bit. So talk to me. Okay, have you watched much Nebraska football this year, the defense in general? Just kind of your thoughts on their attitude, effort, and things of that nature, if you have.
No, I haven't watched them a lot. I was watching the Indiana game. Actually, when I was riding the bike, I was watching them on my iPad. So I watched that game. I know they've had. I know they didn't have a great game against Indiana, but I know they played well all year, and it seems like their defense. I mean, game day was on, and they're talking about, Nebraska's defense was leading the nation in this stat and that stat, and you could have games like Indiana, and where it doesn't work and the plan doesn't work, and those helmets and those black shirts get heavy when things aren't working. I mean, when things are, and Nebraska's been through a lot lately. So they're showing great progress. I think everything's going in the right direction from my perspective. Now I haven't studied them or anything like that, but it's tough to have a game like that going into Ohio State, because Ohio State is going to have a bunch of dudes out there. I mean, they're going to have a bunch of dudes. So it's just tough going into that, with genuine confidence.
All right, man. So obviously strength and conditioning is a huge part of this, getting bigger, getting faster, getting stronger, be in better condition in the second half, fourth quarter. These are all things that are easy things for folks to comprehend how important that is and how it can contribute to the success or lack thereof of a football team. I'm curious, though, if you were to pick like let's say you're a high school kid or you're a college kid or you're someone who wants to get better at football in general, what would be like your top 3 lifts? And maybe your top thing you would do as far as running out on the field that you would advise that people do?
Okay, so first of all, like if I was ever working for a head coach and he said you can only do one exercise to improve performance, it would be squats. Just because you have such different levels of ability, and that takes up a lot of everything that you're going to do from size and strength and ability to move. Now, how you run is really how you're judged, regardless of position. People think, receivers have to run and offensive linemen, have to just be big and strong. But the tackles that go high in the draft, they're 4.7, 4.8 guys. The guys that look like Leiden Mirth or Orlando Pace. He was 3.35 and ran a 4.87, and Adam Carricker didn't get drafted where he got drafted because you're long and you're big and you're super strong, but you got drafted where you got drafted by how you could run. So the squat and the lunge is more correlated to how you run. And you talked about Larry Fitzgerald, lunging 315, and lunges is way more correlated to how you run than squats. All fast guys are strong. All strong guys aren't fast. Anybody that can run a 4.5 could lunge 315. Whether they've done it or seen it, I'm not recommending they do that. But whether they can, whether they've done it or seen it, they have the ability to do it. It's in them. But if there's one thing I want to tell you, if you're talking about guys who have kids and anything, the most important thing you can do is jump. Okay. Like I used to be cleans, snatches and all that kind of stuff. And we'd do that and do it. And I felt like I could teach it better than anybody. And the team's vertical jump would go up a half an inch. And then when we jumped more and more and more, our team average would go up, 2.5 or 3 inches. And, my own sons, I have 3 sons. They all play baseball, in college. And my third one, it was NFL fast and explosive. And there's nobody in my genetic tree like that. Okay. And my wife's. And so, I think, he was younger than the other two. And so he would, when the other two were working out, when I was at Texas A&M, the other two would work out with the team. They do all the same drills, that you did and everything like that. And that was part of what they did, but the other guy was too young. So he'd just jump all the time. And so, I kind of paid attention, I think there's developmental years where what you do determines how you're going to turn up. There's genetic fast twitch and slow twitch, but I believe there's some that'll go either way. And what you do at a certain age is a difference maker. If you're whatever 50-50 and your parents run distance or you're in distance and cross country, then that 20% will go either way, becomes distance. If your parents are into or whatever you're into is more power inclined, then it'll go that way. So that's something I really believe in. So those are really the biggest things, But really, Adam, as much as that's what I did, and it's really about the players. I mean, it's really about what I want. I've always felt like Nebraska fans are so loyal and so genuine, and when you play, like Ohio State is where Nebraska expects to be and should expect to be and wants to be. But when are you going to the game? Or are you watching on TV?
I will not be there this Saturday.
Okay, so here's the thing: when you're on the sideline, when you're on the sideline, you could see the difference in teams, especially in college. Not in the NFL; everybody's the same size in the NFL, pretty much. But pay attention to the dudes and see how you compare, objectively. And I think, once I said, the coaches are doing a great job. I think they're bringing in the right guys, but it really comes down to, it comes down to the dudes. And so that's I wish, Nebraska fans would step back and look and say, okay, that there's a little bit of a difference here. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't, but they're loaded. They're loaded. I talked to a GM friend of mine just yesterday, and he thought Ohio State. I watched them play Oregon. I said, okay. But he thinks they're just, talent-wise, he thinks that they're really, really good. So it'll be a great measuring stick, but you have to be objective when you kind of look at that.
So it's pretty cool for me to get to chat with you. I haven't actually seen you since I think 06, 07, but I got to play with a lot of the guys that we've referenced today, from Orlando and St. Louis to Joey in DC for 2 years. But Levante David, you were with him most recently there in Tampa. Got a lot of Husker fans obviously listening. What's something from your time with Levante? We got about 30 seconds here to 40 seconds. But what's something from your time with Levante in Tampa that Husker fans might find interesting?
So Levante is 100% that guy that I talked to you about. Will go to the place that most people won't go to. He's not the biggest guy, man, but he plays really physical. And he could run really well, but he is just a absolute dude. And so he goes to that spot. And I could talk, I just rambled there for 5 minutes. I'm going, geez, what am I talking about? But with 30 seconds, he is absolutely a dude. And he came up the hard way. He came from, Army Northwestern High School, great high school with Teddy Bridgewater was his quarterback. And all these guys went everywhere, and he had to go the JUCO route and go to Nebraska and do. He's got that Tom Brady chip on his shoulder, and he is an absolute dude.
All right, man. I appreciate it, Coach K. As I've always known him, I appreciate you taking the time, Coach K.
No problem. Thanks for having me.